It's Friday, October 11th of 2019, and lots of stuff's going on. Can't believe everything that you hear, but you can believe it if I say it, because it's Guy's Daily Drive. All right, so last weekend, I almost always seem to start these off by saying, "I'm so sorry, I haven't done one in a while," and it's really not because I don't want to. It's just sometimes things get in the way. They just get in the way. I really enjoy doing Guy's Daily Drive. I swear to God I do. Anyway, enough apologizing. Last weekend, we went to my nephew's wedding. This was my nephew from my wife's side of the family, who I've known for a very, very long time, since he was a small boy. Not much. I think he's like 3 years older than Guy Jr., so he's like 28, 29 years old. Good kid. Always was a good kid. I always liked him. Michael. And his brother, too, for that matter. Oh, you've got to be kidding me. I've got a call. Okay, so I'll have to do some editing in post. That was... Speaking of Guy, that was Guy Jr. calling, telling me that he's done early and that he would like a pickup from work, which I can do. But it did kind of interrupt my flow here. So, Michael, he's like 29 years old. And good kid, went to University of Florida, got an engineering degree, bounced around a little bit with this one particular company in different areas, and finally settled in Atlanta for a while. And this is where he met his bride-to-be, Haley. Wonderful girl, beautiful girl. I had never met Haley prior to the wedding. I hadn't met any of Haley's family prior to the wedding, and why would I? I'm the uncle. I'm not the father. I'm not the mother. I'm just the uncle, and the uncle doesn't have any particular rights or privileges that there's no one saying, well, I don't know if you can marry this man or marry this woman because you haven't met my uncle yet. Nobody says that, ever. Nobody ever says that. For a good reason. So, but we were invited to the wedding. And we decided that this would be a good time to take a family trip. We hadn't taken one in a very, very long time. So, and I spoke about bits and pieces of this in previous Guy's Daily Drives, but the weird part was that it was mostly my wife's idea that we all go, and I didn't argue the point because I figured that would be fun, but the original plan was that we were going to fly down on like a Thursday, and this is in the San Antonio, Austin area. Fly down on a Thursday, go to the rehearsal dinner on Friday. The wedding was on Saturday, and we would have a free day as a family on Sunday, And because both Guy and Peter have jobs, and I do too, but they couldn't afford to be away for that long. So they would fly back on Monday, and Tracy and I would spend a couple of days in Texas, checking stuff out, driving around a bit, looking at things. And somehow or another, that all got twisted and turned around to where we were all going to come back on Monday. So instead of having a nice relaxing trip, it was like 4 days away, 2 days spent basically flying, two different flights. The flight out was 6 a.m. out of D.C. to Chicago, and then a 3-hour layover in Chicago, and then the flight down to San Antonio. And it got us there. We got to the hotel in plenty of time to rest and get changed and all the rest of that for the rehearsal dinner. But the entire day was gone. There was no relaxing time at all. And not to mention the fact that I hate flying, and that our first flight was at 6 o'clock in the freaking morning. But it all worked out. The flight from Chicago to San Antonio, I managed to get exit row, which gives me a little more room for my long-ass legs. So that worked out. And then we go to the rehearsal dinner. And the rehearsal dinner is typically paid for by the father of the groom. Now, the groom, my nephew, his parents, they're divorced, Mike and my sister-in-law, Kelly. And it was tense. But we got through the rehearsal dinner. It was lovely, open bar, so I got a couple of drinks, relaxed a bit. But there was always that feeling of tension. And it didn't help that Mike brought his girlfriend and Kelly brought her boyfriend. And it was, I just kind of shook my head at the whole thing. It was kind of like the wedding itself is typically filled with drama, and we didn't need any more drama from the groom's parents. But it was Friday night was remarkably drama-free. And I have to say that everyone was on their best behavior. When there was no outward animosity between various parties. So it was pleasant, and we had a nice time. Saturday, we went to an area called, it was actually the same area that we ended up going to for the wedding, and the same area that we ended up at for pretty much the same area for the rehearsal dinner. It was this area called, it's Greens, but it's not spelled the normal way. It's spelled Gruenes, something like that. And there's areas of it that were like pretty much just abandoned for a very, very long time. And they have built up this little artist colony, and it was fun. There was lots of cool things to see, cool things to do. And that was Saturday. We had enough time to do that before we had to go to the wedding. Guy and Peter did not accompany us because Guy and Peter and one of Peter's friends who lives in Austin went to go see The Joker. And then spent, I think they were up until like 3 o'clock in the morning back in their room discussing it and probably having some drinks and beer or whatever. So they were in no shape to go wandering around the area when Tracy and I were ready to go. So we just, it's okay, that's fine, you're adults. So we went without them. And then there was the wedding. It was in this I'm not really sure how to describe it. It was an open kind of chapel and it was obviously set up to do marriages because of the way the benches were laid out and all the rest of that. It was a beautiful ceremony. The bride had like 9 bridesmaids, I think mostly just because she didn't want to leave out any of her friends. So there were lots of bridesmaids, and the groom had, I think, seven groomsmen. And it was a beautiful ceremony. Everything was fine. And then we get to the reception. And the reception was like just across from where the chapel was. And it was, again, beautiful facility, kind of wide open. So when the DJ set up and was playing music, it was very echoey. You know, not the best place in the world to have loud music, but it still worked out fine. And then everyone gets their dinners. Dinner was delicious. And then there began the toasts. And to start it all off was the bride's father. Now, the bride's mother and father, I believe, were divorced about 10 years prior. The bride's mother had remarried, so she was there with her husband. The bride's father wasn't with anyone. I came to understand that he had recently gotten out of a long-term relationship, so he was there by himself. And he's a divorce lawyer. So he starts giving this speech. And at the beginning of the speech, he says, you know, lock the doors because I have things to say. And everybody thought that was so funny. But he was serious. He had a whole lot to say. He talked about Haley's strength as a child and some stories about how she was the only one of her friends who had been able to climb this mountain on this retreat that they had been on, or had, you know, gone up this climbing wall, had been able, you know, had gotten stuck on the wall of this cliff and basically hung there for about a half hour until she figured out how to do it, and then she managed to do it. And was basically telling Michael, you know, this is a very strong woman, and, you know, she has chosen you, and you have chosen her, and you know, and this, it was all very cut and dry, a little long-winded, but figured, okay, well, you know, this is going in the usual direction, and then it veered right over into left field, where he talked about something about how marriages have lasted for 60 years. Some marriages have lasted for 60 years. And he kept repeating 60 years, 60 years. Like at the end of 60 years, the husband and wife at the age of, you know, 80s, 90s, however old they are at that point, shake hands and say, well, okay, it's been fun, you know, and separate, because you can't be together longer than 60 years. That was the impression a lot of people got. He talked and talked and talked and talked, and a lot of it was not exactly appropriate for a wedding toast, but it was still somehow all related. And Haley actually got up and hugged him and tried to kind of talk him down, but he powered through that. Then the whole group tried to clap him down, you know, make a lot of, hey, what a great speech, please stop. But no, he powered through that as well. He finished saying everything that he wanted to say. So it was interesting. I have never heard a wedding speech like that before in my life. And I wish I had recorded it, because I would like to listen to it again for the really uncomfortable parts, because those were the best parts. Looking at the time, you were kind of like, oh, but now it's like, I want to hear that again, because I can't believe that this is going on here at this wedding. But it was brilliant. It was so brilliant. And I'm so glad that I was there to experience it. Some other people stood up and gave speeches, including Michael's brother, Troy, who was best man. And his was probably the shortest, but the most to the point and, poignant and all the rest of that. It was a very, very good speech. And then the dancing started, and everybody, all the kids, of course, were playing, having the DJ play music that they enjoyed to dance to. Most of it I had never heard before. Dance music isn't exactly what I prefer to listen to. And at this point, I started to get some pains in my back, and I had a stitch in my side, so I wasn't going to dance. And my sister-in-law Kelly asked me if I was going to ask Tracy to dance. And I said, "Oh no, Tracy doesn't like to dance." And the next thing I know, I look around, and she has grabbed Guy Jr., and they're out on the dance floor dancing. It was like, damn it. Well, my back hurts. I can't dance right now because I'm an old guy with a hurt back. But everybody just had a wonderful time. It really was a lot of fun. I just wish I'd been able to dance. So Sunday, we get up relatively early, and we drive to San Antonio, and we do the river walk, which everybody had recommended. And it was nice. It kind of reminded me of walking through a food court, a really, really long food court. There were lots of restaurants, lots of little shops along this small river. You could take a little boat, and the guide on the boat would explain some of the parts of the river and parts that were related to old time San Antonio. We didn't do that. We just kind of walked around and had lunch at a barbecue place, stopped at the Hard Rock Cafe that they had right there. And then we walked over and we did the Alamo, took some pictures there. That was also very, very nice. And then, Monday was all about flying home. So, we had one day to do stuff, and we spent it pretty much, it was the whole time. We spent the whole time in San Antonio. Stupid son. Spent the whole time in San Antonio. Didn't make it down to Austin, which I would have liked to have seen, but there just wasn't time. So I would, it probably sounds like I'm complaining a little bit, and I'm really not. I would love to go back to that area. I would love to go back to New Braunfels and the Green, and not so much the Riverwalk, not because it wasn't nice, but just because you've done it once and okay, you don't really need to do it again. But I would like to have seen some of the sites in Austin. So maybe sometime I'll be able to get back there and check out a little more of Texas, because I hadn't been to Texas other than Houston for many, 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 many years. Probably going back to the 60s or 70s, other than Houston in the early 2000s. So, but that was that entire crazy, crazy weekend. And it was fun. It was expensive, but it was fun. And I think that's about all I've got to say about all of that today. And the sun is kind of ruining the video part of this, so anyone who's watching this on YouTube, I'm very sorry. I don't know what else to do. But I think I'm going to end it. So if you would like to get a hold of me, you can. You can contact me, guy@mymac.com. You can contact me on the Twitters. Mac Parrot and or Vert Shark. I have my own website, vertshark.com, which I am also woefully behind in posting content that I'm recording. I hope I can get through some of that this weekend. Other podcasts that I do include the MyMac.com podcast, which I do with Gazmaz every single weekend, coming up on our 500th show. 500 weekly shows that we've done. And of course also Wednesday night, the Mac to the Future live cast that I typically do with Warren Sklar and David Ginsburg. I was with Warren, what was that? Last night. We missed the night because I was feeling sick right after we got back. Forgot to talk about that. Maybe next time. If you'd like to help support the things that I do, I have a Patreon page, patreon.com/MacParrot. I have a Ko-fi page, ko-fi.com/MacParrot. And I have a PayPal page that you can contribute to by, paypal.me/MacParrot. And thank you to Greg from North Carolina and Warren Sklar from the aforementioned Mac to the Future livecast for making very generous donations. I really, really do appreciate it. Also, if you're watching this on YouTube, you should like, share, subscribe. However that goes, there's a silly saying, and I think that's it. Just like, share, subscribe. Tell your friends about Guy's Daily Drive. Of course, besides Guy's Daily Drive and the audio feed that you can get in the podcast app or iTunes if you're still not on Catalina yet, you also will get the audio version of the Mac to the Future livecast. Again, done on every Wednesday night. And that is going to about do it. So thank you for watching and or listening to Guy's Daily Drive. And I will catch you next time. Bye.